The first time I realized something was wrong was the moment Felix froze in the doorway, staring at me like I had uncovered a secret he never intended anyone to see. He had no idea that all I had done was read the uncertainty in his eyes the same way someone else might read a weather forecast. Felix always looked like he was about to run toward something or away from something. I had never figured out which, but that night, the air between us felt sharp enough to cut. He dropped his keys onto the counter and tried to smile, but the edges of it trembled. I did not have to hear a word to know he had a bad day. He wore his emotions like a second skin, thin and impossible to hide if you knew where to look. And I had spent enough time learning him in silence, memorizing the way his voice changed when he was anxious, the way his shoulders crept up toward his ears when he was pretending to be fine, the way he held his breath when he was afraid to be honest. I had learned him the way people learn a favorite song. He walked past me, trying to pretend I was not watching him. I let him think he was fooling me. It made him feel safe. "You're quiet," I said finally, leaning against the back of the couch. Felix stopped, turned. His eyes were too bright, shimmering with something he tried to swallow down. "How do you always know?" he whispered. It was not the first time he asked that question, but something about tonight made it feel heavier, like he was bracing himself for an answer that could break something between us. I shrugged. Maybe I just pay attention. He stared at me for a long moment, as if weighing whether that could possibly be true. Then he exhaled shakily, like holding that breath had hurt him. He walked to his room and closed the door, not slamming it, just letting it fall shut with the kind of gentleness that hinted at exhaustion. I wanted to follow him. I did not. Not at first. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. I tried reading. I tried scrolling my phone. I tried not thinking about the look in his eyes, the way his smile had struggled to stay alive on his face. But Felix had a gravity I never learned how to resist. When I knocked softly on his door, I half expected him not to answer. "Yeah," he said, barely audible. I pushed the door open. He was sitting on the floor next to his bed, his knees pulled up, his head tilted back against the mattress. His hair was messy in a way that had nothing to do with carelessness. His eyes were red. He looked at me like I was the last person he wanted to see and the only person he needed. I sat down beside him. He wiped his face quickly, annoyed at himself. "Sorry, I hate when I get like this." "You're allowed to get like this," I said. He swallowed. His voice cracked. "I just feel like you always know what I'm thinking, and it freaks me out." I laughed softly, not at him but at the irony. If only he knew how many times I wished I did know exactly what was going on in his head. "I do not read minds, Felix." "Then how do you do it?" he whispered. "How do you always know when something is off with me?" I hesitated. If I told him the truth, would it push him away? Would it reveal too much? Would it show him everything I had been trying so hard not to say out loud? Finally I answered because I care. That seemed to strike something deep inside him. His breath caught. His shoulders shook once, like a silent sob had tried to escape. He leaned into me, slowly at first, carefully, like he expected me to pull away. I did not. The warmth of him seeped through my shirt, his head resting against my shoulder. His voice was so soft I almost missed it. "I wish I was easier to understand." "You are," I said quietly, "at least to me." He let out a breath somewhere between a laugh and a cry. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple." We sat there in silence, and something in that silence changed the shape of the room. It felt heavier, fuller, more honest. After a long time he spoke again. "Do you ever think there's something wrong with me?" I turned my head to look at him. The vulnerability in his expression made my chest ache. "There's nothing wrong with you, Felix. But I feel so lost sometimes." "Everyone feels lost." "Not like this." I studied him, The way his hands fidgeted. The way his gaze dropped to his knees. The way he seemed afraid even of his own words. "Felix," I said slowly, "if you want to tell me something, you can. You know that, right?" He hesitated. His lips parted. Closed. Parted again. Then he shook his head. "Not yet." "Okay," I said. "I'm here whenever you want to." He looked at me then with an intensity that stole the air from my lungs. His eyes searched mine, as if trying to see whether I meant what I said, whether I would still be there if he told me everything he was terrified of revealing. He drew a shaky breath. "I'm scared," he admitted. "About what? About how I feel. About what it means. About what might happen if I say it out loud." A soft thud echoed inside my chest. I tried to keep my expression calm, but I knew my heartbeat had betrayed me. "You don't have to be scared with me," I said. He nodded, but the fear in his eyes did not fade. Another quiet moment passed before he whispered, "Do you think there are some things people should never say?" I thought about that, about confessions, about consequences, about how truth has a way of rearranging the world. "Maybe," I said, "but not the things that matter." He let that sink in. Then he whispered, "What if the thing that matters breaks something?" I turned my whole body toward him, letting my knee brush against his. He looked startled by the contact, like he felt it everywhere at once. "Then we figure it out," I said. He stared at me for a long time. I could feel the question trembling on his lips, clinging there, desperate to be spoken and terrified to be born. But he stayed silent. And I let him be silent. Because sometimes silence is not avoidance. Sometimes it is courage gathering itself. Eventually he leaned his head against my shoulder again. His voice was nothing more than a breath. "Thank you, David." "For what?" "For seeing me." My chest tightened. I wanted to tell him I always saw him, that I had been seeing him long before he ever looked back. But that felt too big to say, too fragile. So instead I said, "Anytime." We stayed like that until his breathing slowed, until the tension in his shoulders softened, until he seemed to melt into the floor like he had finally given himself permission to rest. When he fell asleep against me, I did not move. I let his weight anchor me, let the rise and fall of his chest fill the room with something I could never name. And for the first time, I wondered whether he could feel my heartbeat the way I felt his. The next morning, he pretended nothing happened. He emerged from his room with messy hair and an oversized hoodie, acting as if he had not fallen apart in my arms less than 12 hours ago. He grabbed a bowl for cereal, yawning loudly, stretching dramatically, performing normalcy with every breath. "You sleep okay?" I asked, pouring coffee. He froze for a fraction of a second, just enough for me to notice. "Yeah," he said quickly. "You?" I nodded, but he avoided my eyes, focusing far too intensely on pouring cereal. "Felix," I began. He lifted the spoon, dropped it, then said in a rush, "Look, about last night, you don't have to explain." He did not look relieved. He looked frustrated. "Why do you do that?" he demanded. "Do what?" "Make everything feel like you're reading my mind." I blinked. "Felix, no, I'm serious. You know things you should not know. You see things I haven't even said. It is like you reach into my head and pull them out." His voice shook. "Is that what scares you?" I asked gently. He deflated, a slow exhale, shoulders sinking. "It's one of the things." I stepped closer, not touching him, not yet. "I don't read your mind, Felix," I said, voice steady. "I just pay attention to you, more than you notice." His breath hitched, his eyes flicked up to mine. "Why?" he whispered. I opened my mouth, closed it, searched for something honest that would not give away everything. "Because you matter to me." He swallowed hard. His grip tightened around the cereal bowl. "David," he said quietly, voice trembling, "if I tell you something and you look at me differently afterward, I don't think I can survive that." I moved one step closer, close enough to feel the faint warmth of him radiating through the air. "I will not look at you differently," I said. "Not ever." He searched my face for any sign of doubt. He found none. And then, for the first time, the wall between us cracked. "I think I like you," he whispered, "but I do not know if it is allowed to feel this way. I do not know if it's okay." My breath stopped. Felix's lips trembled. His eyes glistened. "I think something might be wrong with me." I stepped forward and gently took the bowl from his shaking hands, set it on the counter. Then I cupped the side of his face, thumb brushing his cheek. "There is nothing wrong with you." He let out a broken sound, like something inside him finally loosened. I opened my mouth to tell him everything he needed to hear. But at that exact moment, the doorbell rang, and everything inside him snapped shut again. The doorbell cut through the moment with a sharpness that made Felix flinch like he had been caught doing something wrong. His breath stuttered, and I watched the panic drift across his face, erasing every trace of vulnerability he had let slip. I held up a hand gently. "It is okay. Stay here." He nodded but did not move. His eyes were wide, almost frightened, as if the world outside that door could shatter him more easily than any truth he held inside. When I opened the door, a delivery guy stood there with a package I had forgotten I ordered. I signed for it quickly, thanked him, and closed the door. The interruption lasted maybe 20 seconds. But in those 20 seconds, the entire energy of the room had changed. Felix had stepped away from the counter, arms wrapped tightly around himself, gaze locked on the floor like he was trying to rewind the last 5 minutes and erase everything he had said. The sunlight filtering through the curtains caught the strands of his blonde hair, but he stood in the shadow as if he belonged nowhere near the light. "Felix," I said softly, stepping toward him. He shook his head quickly. "Please do not." "Do not what?" "Do not pretend this is simple. Do not pretend I did not just risk everything saying that out loud." "You did not risk anything," I said. His laugh was hollow, brittle. "You say that like you already know how this ends." I moved closer, slow enough not to spook him. "I do not know how it ends, but I know what is true." His voice cracked. "And what is true? That you matter. That nothing you say will make me turn away. That I see you, and I am not scared of it." His fingers twitched at his sides, like he wanted to reach for something but did not know if he had the right. "You do not understand," he whispered. "Then help me. Tell me." He inhaled shakily. His lips parted, but the words did not come. Instead, he pressed his hands to his face, dragging in a breath that sounded more like a quiet cry. "I am sorry," he whispered between his palms. "I should not have said anything. I should have kept it to myself." "No." I took his wrists gently and lowered his hands. His eyes were red again. "Honest. Do not apologize for being honest." "It is not honesty. It is weakness. It is human." He looked away, his voice small. "You do not get it. If you knew how long I have been trying not to feel this way, you would not say that." "Then tell me how long." He hesitated. Then, in the faintest whisper, "Since the night we stayed up talking until sunrise. The night you told me you never leave a movie theater until all the credits finish rolling because you think the people behind the scenes deserve to be seen too." My breath stilled. That was almost a year ago. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, and the confession in them nearly dropped me to my knees. "A year," I repeated softly. He nodded. "And you never said anything?" He shook his head quickly. "How could I? We were friends. You trusted me. I did not want to ruin what we had. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But then you kept doing things that made it worse. Small things. Things you probably do not even remember because to you they are nothing. Like what? I asked. He swallowed. You always wait for me when we walk somewhere, even if I'm slow. You turn down your music when I come home because you know I get overwhelmed by noise. You notice when I am close to shutting down and you sit next to me without asking questions. You always leave the last slice of pizza for me even though I know you want it. You look at me like you actually see me. His voice trembled, and I did not know how to stop caring about that. I stepped closer until only a breath separated us. Felix. Do not, he whispered, stepping back. Do not say what you think I want to hear. I cannot handle that. I frowned. I am not lying to you. But you are kind, and kindness can trick people into thinking it is something else. My chest tightened. Is that what you think this is? Kindness? What else could it be? Something real. He froze. Slowly, impossibly slowly, he whispered, you do not mean that. I do. Every word. His breath hitched. His eyes dropped to my mouth, then snapped away like he had caught fire. Why did you not tell me? He whispered. Because I did not want to push you. Because I wanted you to come to me when you were ready. Because I was scared too. He stared at me, stunned. You were scared? Of losing you, I said. Of misreading something. Of ruining the only place that has felt like home in a long time. His throat tightened. I watched him swallow, watched the sincerity sink into him, watched him try to hold back the hope rising in his eyes. I felt something the night I moved in, he said slowly. I did not know what it was, just that you made everything feel less heavy. And then every day after that, it felt harder to pretend I did not feel it. You do not have to pretend anymore. His breath trembled. David, I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to be enough. You already are. He closed his eyes, a whisper barely forming. What if I break this? What if I break you? I stepped forward and took his hand gently. And what if you do not? His eyes opened. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Something hopeful. Something fragile. He squeezed my hand. I want to trust this, he said. I just do not know how. Then let me show you how. He exhaled shakily, and for the first time that morning, the tension in his body loosened. He leaned into me, not the collapse of last night, something more deliberate, something that took courage. I wrapped an arm around him, feeling the slow surrender in his posture, the quiet relief in his breathing. He rested his forehead against my shoulder. I'm still scared, he whispered. Me too, I said, but we can be scared together. For a moment the world felt still, warm, familiar in a way that made my heart ache. Felix lifted his head just enough to meet my eyes. Do you think this could be real? He asked. It is already real, I answered. A soft, disbelieving smile tugged at his lips. And for the first time since he walked into the apartment last night, he looked like he might believe it. Felix did not pull away this time, not even a little. He stood there holding on to my hand like it was the only thing keeping him steady, his chest rising and falling in careful, uncertain breaths. I could feel the tension in him, but not the kind that pushed me away. It was the kind that whispered he was trying, even if he was terrified. We moved to the couch without a word. He sat first, shoulders tight, gaze fixed on his hands like they were new to him. When I sat beside him, the cushion dipped and he glanced at me, startled, as if he had forgotten I was real and sitting right beside him. Can we talk? He asked softly. Of course. He pulled his knees up slightly, one foot tucked beneath him. It was a habit he only had when he was letting himself be honest. Felix did not open easily. His honesty always arrived in small, careful pieces, like tiny offerings he was afraid I might reject. I do not know how to do this, he admitted. Any of it. I do not know what people are supposed to feel, or how fast, or how slow, or what comes next. Whatever pace you need, I said. That is what comes next. He took a trembling breath. And what about you? What do you need? I hesitated. Not because I did not know, but because saying it out loud felt like stepping across a line we could never uncross. I need you to trust that you are allowed to feel what you feel. His eyes softened. That is hard for me. I know. He looked at me then, really looked like he was memorizing my face in case he needed to rebuild me later from memory. I could feel the weight of his stare. It wrapped around me like warm hands, careful but undeniable. What if I mess up? He whispered. Then we fix it. What if I hurt you? Then we talk about it. What if I ruin everything? You will not. How do you know? Because I know you, Felix. He swallowed, eyes glistening again. He rested his forehead on his knees for a moment, grounding himself, then lifted his head. Can I tell you something I have never said out loud? He asked. Anything. He breathed in slowly. Then, in a quiet voice filled with something fragile and unbelievably true, he said, I think I have been lonely for a long time. Even when I was surrounded by people. Even when I laughed. Even when I pretended everything was fine. It always felt like something was missing. Like I was missing something inside myself. My chest tightened. Felix rarely said things like this. He carried his loneliness in silence the way some people carried scars. I reached out and took his hand again, lacing my fingers with his. His breath caught, and he glanced down at our hands like he could not believe mine were still holding his. You are not alone anymore, I said. He blinked fast, trying to hide how much that meant to him. But the truth was written all over his face. The relief, the fear, the quiet hope. A soft knock echoed on the door across the room. We both froze. I was not expecting anyone, I said. Felix stiffened immediately, panic tightening his shoulders. Do not answer it. Felix, please, he whispered. Not right now. His voice was so small, so raw that I did not question it. Whoever was at the door could wait. I stayed where I was, my hands still wrapped around his. The knock came again, louder this time. Felix flinched. I stood slowly. I am just going to check who it is. I will not open the door. He hesitated, breathing uneven. Then he nodded. I walked to the peephole and looked. A man stood there holding a folder under his arm. Early 30s, professional clothes, sharp expression. I do not know him, I said gently. It might be for the building. Felix went pale in a way that made something cold twist in my gut. Felix? He shook his head, backing up until he hit the couch. Not now, he whispered. Not today. I cannot deal with that today. Deal with what? He pressed both hands to his hair, fingers digging in like he was trying to anchor himself. His eyes were wide with a kind of fear that did not belong to someone imagining things. It belonged to someone remembering something. The knock came a third time. Felix shut his eyes tight. I stepped forward, blocking his view of the door. Felix, hey, look at me. Took a moment, but he did. Who is he? I asked gently. Felix opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His throat worked. His breaths grew faster. His hands shook. Felix, breathe with me. He tried, failed, tried again. I walked back to him and knelt in front of him, placing my hands on his knees. Breathe in, I said softly. He inhaled, a shaky, uneven pull of air. Now out. He exhaled, shoulders trembling. Again. He followed the rhythm, breath by breath, until the panic loosened its grip on him, until his hands stopped shaking, until the fear in his eyes softened just enough for him to see me again. Finally, he whispered, voice cracked and fragile, he is from my old school. I felt a shift inside me. Heavy. Grounding. Did something happen? I asked carefully. Felix nodded once. Barely. Is he someone who hurt you? Felix's jaw clenched. His eyes shined with something dark. Not anger. Not sadness. Something older. Something he had carried too long. I do not want to talk about him, he said. Not yet. Okay. He looked at me like he expected me to push for answers. Like he expected pressure. Like he expected disappointment. But I did not push. I simply said, you do not have to. He inhaled a shaking breath, the tension in him melting in slow, uneven waves. His shoulders dropped. His eyes softened. Thank you, he whispered. The knock stopped. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Silence settled around us again, warm and gentle this time. Felix exhaled slowly. He ran his fingers through his hair, grounding himself again. I hate that he can still do that to me, he said quietly, after all this time. You are safe here, I told him. He cannot touch you. He cannot hurt you. Felix looked at me with something vulnerable and trusting. Something that asked if he could believe that, if he was allowed to. Can you stay? He asked softly, just for a little while. I sat beside him again, of course. He leaned against me, not collapsing this time, but choosing it. Choosing me. His hand found mine in the space between us, fingers curling slow, careful, intentional. I want to tell you someday, he whispered. About him. About everything. I need time. Take all the time you need. He rested his head on my shoulder, and for the first time since he moved in with me, Felix felt steady in my arms. Not fixed. Not healed. Just steady. And for now, that was enough.